Hey, we're back. How you
Yeah,
doing, Carson?
I'm doing good. Let's look
Can,
at Genier.
uh, is it safe to say that Gene Day was a genius?
He was a genius. Yes, absolutely. And look at that. Right out the gate, he'd come back and he'd be like, all right, bitches, we're doing Muka.
This is an excellent. It's interesting. It's like full circle Muka because we're coming back to the Orientalist influence on Muka. Uh,
Yeah, and it's
and
beautiful because it is has the Oriental aspect too. And it's like, oh my God, like you're putting those things together, dude.
I think that Christy Shields' coloring on this page is a lot better, even if some of the shapes are fairly perfunctory. The actual color itself, color choice is fairly nice. It's a nice contrast between some of the other work.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Um,
I
he
like the
loves
flat
this.
colors. I would hate to see this digitally colored.
I would love to just see it in line art. I used to own a Gene Day Mike Zeck original. I actually gifted it to Dave.
Mhm.
I picked it up for something like $25. It was quite
Jeez.
extraordinary when you really see his inking up close. I mean, he is just a consummate craftsman. Um, all these little beads, I remember each one of them had a little highlight on them. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
dude, we need a not an artist's edition because an artist edition of this whole run would be way too big and thick, but like an artisan's edition where it's like a black and white adjusted
right.
just print of this. If the resources are there for it.
I loved this page right here when you see this extreme view of the house and it pulls down and some sleight of hand here. We have the basement. You notice this transition here?
It's
We've
really
gone
smart because he also
underground.
folds it with those panels.
Right. Exactly.
They create like a hinge.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, you're right. That functions like a visual hinge. That's really
Because
interesting.
that's the horizon line goes right between there, and it would be weird to see all that stuff cross across the horizon line, so he covered that and like hinged it with the panels.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Really beautiful stuff. And we see the this is the Fu Manchu return, his evil uh Orientalist stereotype father. Um, and so we get a lot of background. This right here, just kills me. She's then I board the plane, leaving Leiko on the dock. Has she felt the same feelings? And she's waving, but it almost looks like a throw,
Yeah,
right?
I just noticed that because I would have zipped by that page, but when you stopped me on it, I noticed the throw.
Now look at this. We've got the dot where they are, right? And we're
Yeah.
extending this out here through this panel. Fly, true shaft, like your brothers. Obey not my dead eyes. We got the blind archer. Fire the leaf falling. He's picking up the bow. The leaf is falling. He fires the bow. It pierces the line of the airplane and pierces the leaf. Right, my will. We connects it to North America, and then it continues here, and it's an arrow pointing at the freaking jet.
But it looks like a ball like that she bounced off the wall as
Right.
well. Like that, which goes perfectly. And you have the target like having like the bullseye and then her like ping ping off of something as well. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that until you said stop and look at this page. That's sophisticated shit.
This is the meta composition we were talking about when we talked about that chain and how we wished it connected. This is
Yeah,
just like three different ideas combined, and then
flawless.
the jet is traveling from right to left, which he
Yeah,
almost never does. But here, I mean, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I just
yeah.
it kills me. Um, lots of great background detail. Obviously, he's got like some National Geographic magazines here, but all of it is integrated rendering wise with the rest of the stuff really well. I like
This
the
is
I
where
like.
we're saying like he came back harder too,
Yep.
like with all of these tricks that he's got. Like, dude, come on.
Across the panels here.
Yeah, and the next page. This is where I think Brandon would say just make that one continuous background and don't break it up into panels. Except as he gets closer, the panels break off nice where he's not overlapping himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this would read differently as one continuous panel. I think it gives it that rhythm that you were talking about. I mean, each division is like a punctuation.
That's my defense of breaking things up.
Me too.
And when we've talked to Brandon about it, I think he thinks you're like overtraining the reader to see them as individual moments that their mind can do it. But I just like the design aspect of the
Me too.
rhythmic quality.
When I was a purely visual artist for a while and didn't do any comics at all, I would still break images up like this because it's innately appealing to me. I find it like interesting to impose time and rhythm through these barriers. It's like the comicsness of it is appealing to me.
Well, and just the musicality, he's got 8 against 3, so he's playing
Right.
he's playing like a 4/4 against or he's playing like
It's a
8
polyrhythmical
against a 3. Yeah.
3, 8, 1.
Yeah.
This
And
is
I love
one
that shit.
panel right here. I mean, just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And these screaming faces. I mean, these sexy feet. Sorry, you're gonna well observed. Single foot up in the air there.
Do we have a foot fetish?
I don't have a foot.
I don't. Like in real life, I don't. But in comics, apparently we do.
I think the drawn feet thing that we've been talking about has to do with the fact that someone lets go when they're doing it. It's like it's a humanizing kind of. I say sexiness. I don't really mean sexiness. I mean like earthiness. It like gives reality to a figure because I'm not sure exactly what to do it. If you're looking at like a pinup or something, they don't emphasize that. It's like the casualness of the way the foot can kind of communicate is different than the intensity of a sort of sex pot pose.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like it's more of a person, and therefore the ability to find them attractive is increased from like just a plastic bit of meat.
Right.
But it's funny that we keep tagging it to feet. Like that's a funny thing because I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to pry into your sexual preferences, but I'm just because like I'm not into feet.
No, I don't. That's not. Yeah, that's. I guess I'm using the word sexy when I really mean is like earthy detail.
But I do mean it in sexy because there's something about the vulnerability every time we've mentioned feet that makes the characters, I don't know about like not just sexually attractive, but they make them attractive to me.
Yeah, sure. The
so
characters themselves
earthy.
Yeah. Well, it's like the reality of it. I don't know. Well, whatever. Somebody wants to. Yeah.
It's gonna be its whole own video series.
This little line right here. I don't know. I love it.
And her feet are contained within one of the rhythmic subdivisions. So even though we have a 1 beat at the bottom, the 1 beat at the bottom is split up largely along the subdivisions created by the panel up top.
I think this would be even more successful if the figures hadn't been emphasized with the color. That is kind of detracting for me from the overall flow. Maybe not. Maybe this would be.
I mean, you need to see them. They couldn't be blue. They're too important. But
right.
I'd be interested how he would color it because he's obviously so intentional with his rhythms. I wonder how he would manipulate rhythm with color.
Yeah, I saw a few of his professionally painted things that he did for, I believe it was like an RPG magazine, and they're really great.
So he was sophisticated with color.
Yeah, at least based on the 3 images that I've seen. That's the only 3 images I've ever seen of his that he colored were paintings that he did. Looks like mixed media paintings that he did for an RPG thing. And then, continuing the domination of the double page spread here, which I love the duality, the dual opposing close-ups, and then with her in the center, and then we've got all the action spread out across, sometimes units of 2.
That's where he's like suck it shooter.
Well, we're really going to get that soon. So you flagged this one. Was it for the Art Nouveau?
Yeah, the Muka. Yeah. Combined with the Asian motifs. I find that
Right.
really interesting. Really beautiful combination.
I like the little inset here of the bird and the eyelets.
And that's
It's almost
this is also another reason I flagged this is, again, J.H. Williams, and also makes me think of what Mark Buckingham did on Fables, where they always had these just Fables. I don't know if you've ever seen that Vertigo series. They always have just design bits on the side. There's like a little vertical space that's always set aside for design bits that are just related to the characters, but not necessarily the story. And just having some of those just pure design motifs on here. Again, you know, what were you smoking, dude? You were in the future for sure.
You can see a little hint of what he was capable of doing in black and white. That's this intriguing feathering here, hatching that's totally gummed up with the terrible printing.
And he put like a tone over on the side too, just like totally unnecessary. But
right,
he was like, it's too much black over there, too dense. And then the next set of pages is like, here's another. It is a 2-page spread, but it's not. Dave used this a lot on Strange Death, where it was a 2-page. Like if I did a 2-page spread, I just draw it across, but Dave often left that gap, even though the image connects. Smart.
And then right here, this window mimicking the inset panels here,
Yeah,
almost as if the panels have been flipped out like that. That was a Strange Death. That really reminded me of Strange Death as well.
Yeah,
where Dave's use of hidden vanishing points inside of compositions to create the meta composition. Once again, these overlaying stripes, which I think they might have both picked those up from Barry Windsor Smith, Conan.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And as nutty as this issue is, it gets even nuttier. Really just hog wild. Once again, this move right here, I've got to steal this.
Well, see, and that's a super,
this.
that's that Mark Buckingham Fables thing, kind of, where you have the 2 thin strips on the side and then all the paneling in the middle. And Eric Larson has been doing that a lot in Savage Dragon too. There's some Gene Day ones later where that side panel gets a little bit thicker, so you have a long vertical and then a stack of horizontals. Like just some of these compositional units I've seen, and I was picking up on that looking at it, like that there's these resonances on these strips on the left and right, but it's a way different thing to see them next to each other like that, because I couldn't. And that happens in the next page as well.
A close-up of the blood dripping across the these here. It's just really fantastic.
Well, actually, this whole sequence, starting with that first panel on the left, you could strip the middles out, strip all the middle action out, and just those verticals on the side make their, so flip the page, strip out the middle, and again, those 4 side pieces make their whole own little sequence. And that continues into the next page, where then the characters are fighting in front.
That is wild.
So you could, it's like a story within a story. You could, I don't know if the dialogue reinforces that or not, but I didn't, until I'm seeing that like all 4 together like that, I didn't pick up on that. But that's some genius. Again, subdivisions of time existing within time,
right?
Which seems like an Eastern kind of concept to me.
Yeah, it's really striking, and you could see that he probably used the method of having up the entire thing on his wall as he was working, so he could see the issue as a whole. Because just flipping through it like that, I mean, like you said, this whole sequence, every single page is connecting to the previous one.
So that would be like a badass 6-page fold out,
right?
Basically, which Dave did some. I don't know if you noticed that, but there's some 4 or 5-page fold outs embedded in Strange Death,
right?
That you don't get because you only see them in 2-page spreads, but things connect over the turn sometimes. that I didn't
So
notice until much later in the process. But again,
we're
suck it, Alan Moore. Beat you to it, buddy.
So we're now down to the last 6 full issues of comics that Gene Day would ever draw.
This is unfortunate. I mean, and you really like emphasizing how unfortunate that is, because this is like he went and took a break and came back doing this. What does the next break lead to if he would have had it?
I mean, it's unbelievable. Keep in mind, he was doing this stuff at the same time as he was doing other jobs for Marvel. And the big bone of contention about his death and Dave's implication that Jim Shooter was responsible for his death has to do with those other jobs that he was doing for Marvel while he was working on this.
Overworked him?
That's Dave's implication in an essay that he wrote. And specifically because he had done a job for a black and white Marvel magazine simultaneously while doing the monthly book. And Marvel called him on the phone and told him that they needed to hurry it to be inked, so they weren't going to assign it a single inker. They were going to quote unquote gang ink it that weekend. And he had penciled this job for this black and white magazine, and he didn't want it gang inked. So what he did is he took a train to Marvel because he was terrified of flying. And he went down there, and when he arrived, one of the sub editors put him up in a hotel that had cockroaches crawling all over the room. This is according to Dave. And he asked, basically to have another hotel, and they said, well, you can stay in the lobby. So he went down to the office down there, and not in the middle of a cold snap, not knowing that they turned off the heater in the office, and he got a kidney infection from staying overnight at the Marvel offices on a couch in the lobby with no heater on. And the kidney infection is possibly led to his cardiac issue a couple months later.
I mean, maybe.
He had a kidney infection for the rest of his life that caused him immense pain, and can be linked to cardiac issues, like that's something like that. People don't generally die of heart attacks at the age 31.
Yeah. I mean, over stress on work and other medical complications. It's a like, not Jim Shooter killed him, but
no,
like he was in circumstances because of his work situation that
were very stressful.
Contributed to his early death, which is unfortunate, because you got this page open. I mean, here's another trick that him and Dave had to have been passing back and forth that I really like, is I call it documents in comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. The contract for his martial arts abilities.
Yeah, and it makes it's not just a page of text then, because sometimes I'll turn to a page of text and it's like, oh man, I have to read a page of text. But if you're showing me like that the page of text is a page within the story, it's an object, then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm still reading a comic. I'm not just reading a book all of a sudden. So I've always liked when people do documents in comics. I think it keeps me in the story more than changing modality.
This Scottish castle is one of my least favorite visual things that he has to draw, but it's inherited from the previous artists, which I think is an interesting
cool
thing. Yeah.
Does it well.
You have me flag this one. I was curious.
Oh yeah, it was just because this is what I'm talking about. Like, we've now got a writer who realizes that he's working with a real designer. So it looks to me like the story is thematically composed around King, Queen, Jack, and that's letting him go in and have this design motif on the page. Also, I just noticed like what kind of weird sex thing is going on here where they're choking this guy.
Inappropriate reference here.
Yeah. So I just flagged throughout this issue that I liked that it looked like the story was constructed around the characters.
Right. Here's the Jack.
Yeah.
Once again, using the large vertical panel against several horizontal panels. This one here, I liked the looking down the window and seeing the stairwell. We've got the two combined, not quite entirely successfully, but really great feet here.
It's not sexy
As-
when it's a dude's feet,
No?
but well observed. We're both gonna get in trouble. And the it's like the spades versus the whoever comes up next, but then doing that same trick again of just running this design element over the panel borders
Mhm.
that he did in the earlier issue, and then you build up to from the hearts then. So I didn't read it. I don't know what that has to do with the story, but I'm assuming it's integral. I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All integrated into the plot here. If you read all these issues, the well worth taking the time to do so, but that's not something that we're, really that's not the goal that we have here.
I just didn't
Um,
have time to this
no,
week,
and
or else
I
I
think that
would have.
they're also just really formally interesting, and I think that that's the striking aspect of it. So here is the thing where this is apparently the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of oh, we're not quite there yet. Nope, never mind. Another nice double page animation style
Split
Steranko
into single
influenced.
split into potential single pages.
Right. Look at the slice getting larger and then receding again.
And how he bends the corner at the page. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like that makes physically holding it more interesting.
Right.
Like you can bend your comic back and make the wall. And there's that more like what Eric Larson's been doing a lot of. I don't know why, but
here's the king. And then finally the Joker.
It all ends with the Joker. Yeah.
And the card game.
Yeah.
Card
So
game
I
back
like
at
that.
their,
And that's a
at
good
their
writer.
headquarters.
That's a really
Yep.
good writer.
After a couple issues of no letters pages, the letters pages are now back reinstated, full of praise for the ongoing series. So now
Jim Shooter took that away. He's like, can't let him get a big head. No. No, what happened is they had that fill-in issue for 2 issues and everyone wrote like, what the hell, this stuff sucks. Even though it's like perfectly good artist, it's just like not Gene Day. That 2-page spread in there is super Eisner, and again shows his fascination with stairs.
Yeah, right here. So we're building up to the big return of the double size spectacular that's 118, and they're teasing his dad more and everything like that, but this is a great double page spread here.
And there's panels in the like sculptures in the wall,
Just fantastic.
Which I assume is some kind of recap device.
Notice that the card game from the previous page is flowing into the way that the credits are here.
Yeah.
Blood of his blood. And the rhythm of this really gets me, and I just love the close in on the statue here. And we get closer and closer to the statue.
Which
Really
is ballsy.
cinematically.
Like you're putting all of your drawing effort into kind of an irrelevant piece of statuary.
Right.
And the fight's happening in the back and there's like no detail there, but it works really good. Like I don't know, it just makes it look different. That's what it's like. Someone else could do the same fight scene and it would be good, but it's like it just doesn't have that extra bit of like interest to it.
Right. And lots of more of the same here. The silhouetted gargoyles here. Quite liked.
I've seen some other like church and state type of down shots too, and some of the architecture and yeah.
It's more across the panel here. The giant bug reminds us that we're in a free-for-all, non-genre free-for-all here. And you tagged this one here.
I did.
Oh, maybe.
Oh no, I intended the next one. Yeah, sometimes
okay.
I lost count. Yeah, I love that shot. Yeah, that seems also strange for the time.
It's great.
And then you lead down into 2 more circular panels happening below, so it's like you're flipping. Now you're seeing from that character's viewpoint, which is pretty cool.
You know,
and they're watching it on a screen.
Yep. Okay. His layouts really remind me of like, did I ever tell you that I worked as a candy delivery man for 4 days?
No. Why did you? Just please tell.
I worked lots of weird temp jobs when I was like 20, 21 years old. I got hooked up with a temp organization that would hire me out for just a few days at a time. I worked as a candy delivery man, and I brought candy to grocery stores, like to fill up those bulk bins or whatever. And this reminds me of like if you had gone from being a candy delivery man and all of a sudden you got to design the candy and eat it all day. He's just like, I've been looking at this candy for so long, and now I get to make the candy. It's like, this guy's looking at a glass. Great, this next panel will be that way. Oh, more of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that was I can't say it enough. Is that was when I looked through these. You're like, hey, look at this stuff. I was like, well, he's been waiting for a while because he knows he's working over people that are inferior. And he's got ideas. He's obviously so committed, and obviously Dave was too. So the two of them had to be just sitting there like ramping each other up so much about the possibilities of comics. Right. And like that was all pent up, and you're inking, and so you can't do shit about all of this other stuff because all of the stuff that's interesting to these guys is being decided by someone else, and you're just converting the lines. Like he had to have been so pent up.
Right. We got a nice setup for a sort of horror situation here where he's, tied up, and the mastermind's, going over all the horrible things that he's going to do to him.
And then ads to ruin it.
Right. And we're almost to 118, which is the real big one.
Is there anything in 117?
Yeah, I've got a few here. I got just this sequence where he bites the blood bag and gets blood spattered all over his own body so that he can work himself slightly free from the thing. And he like pulls a salt shaker and like gets these rats out of their cage. And the rats like chew at his flesh. He's like ripping himself from the table, and a little rat is hanging on his arm.
It's such good storytelling. Jim Shooter, go take a walk.
Right here.
The girlfriend's still coloring it. I like some of the colors, like on this sequence here where he's screaming. There's some pretty good colors there.
No, I think that she grew into it. I think that some of the complaints are legit. But
that page, holy crap! Like, who designed that? Like, just letting this guy loose to design environments. Holy cow!
Right. Yeah, this pre-Raphaelite or like post-Baroque, I forgot what that period is called. Sculpture.
Yeah, pre-Raphaelite, yeah.
Really nice stuff. And just these endless staircases. And this is where the editorial pressure on him had really heated up, which is unbelievable. You think that somebody's turning in this and he's getting notes on it. I mean, what note would you give? Like,
I don't know, especially compared to like a couple issues later.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
and then you get his answer about whether he's going to take this. So he's being told, do not extend the action across panels. So what does he do? He has a sequence in which there's a fight scene that happens across this entire page, right? Which is all one background, reads perfectly. And then the same sequence, look at this, is continuing onto the next page and to this page. That is 3 pages of almost continuous background. The only difference is that it's flipped on the hinge of the page. He goes in this door and exits here. So this is the reverse of this page.
Yeah, it's like the other side of the wall. You don't get that when you see it just a single page at the time.
You got to wonder, when he did this, did he know? You know, like, nobody's going to tell you to redraw it, right? Like, you got to hope. Like, he really just pushed it. I mean, as far as you can possibly push it, right? Because like 3 pages of this right here.
And the first one, we have a guy running up through the door there, up at the upper right. Does that pay off somewhere? I'm just curious.
Well, that's the escaping figure that he was trying to chase. So his Fu Manchu flees the flooding crypt, seeking the higher ground of the graveyard. So he's attempting to chase Fu Manchu, but he's got caught by this guy instead.
I just wonder if in all the flipping, like they wrapped around and he's like running across the top somewhere else. That would have been cool. No, he didn't do it, but that would have been even better.
He fights this guy and escapes into the door, and then has to fight these other monsters. This is all building up to, you know, the conflict with Fu Manchu in issue 118, which is the next one we're going to look at. I just like these moment to moment here with him leaving out the window.
Yeah, good for you, Gene Day. You know what you were doing was good, and you didn't listen to anybody. And again, where are we? Oh, next page. Look at, he kicks across the border there, so he sets up the reading order correct
right here. That's brilliant.
Screw you, Shooter. Here's how you do it. They'll figure it out. They're not dumb. They're not all 12. 12-year-olds are smart too.
Oh man. And then this close up here, slightly changing angle. And then we have possibly the best issue that he ever did. Double issue. You can see my tags here.
Yeah.
418. If you're only going to buy one of these comics, by the way, these are all very cheap, very affordable, available on eBay. I would definitely pick these up if I were you. This one here has that same accumulation of detail, only through pure black and pure white that we were talking about before.
Perfect for sculptures.
Yep. Parachuting in on top of this sculpture textured background. And then these angled inset panels are really wild.
And also the feet right behind it, like cutting the other way. So while he's falling, someone's coming in behind him.
Absolutely horrid color trapping. No attempt whatsoever at keeping that in the shape or having it go all the way to the edge of the panel. I mean, just unbelievably bad color trapping.
Just paint the whole thing red.
Yep.
If they could have been consistent all the way to the border, though, so it at least would have like colorized the whole thing. Like just slap some tape. What's this gal's name? Christine.
Well, Christy. She wouldn't have done Christy Shield. She wouldn't have done the color separations. So part of this might be just an issue with who they had doing the separations. She would have just been
rectangle.
Right.
Just do the whole rectangle.
Whoever was cutting the ruby lith to do this this is all budget. You know, the reason that Marvel comics from this time period look so terrible is because they started using plastic plates, printing plates that would wear out impressions. While they were making the impressions, they would wear out. You know, I mean, everything was budget. Everything was cutting corners. You know,
there's some more polyrhythms. You got 3 against 1 against 8, but then the last third is broken into 4s up top.
Right.
But then it's 1, 2, and then an extended note, basically.
And then this fist cutting through here, the white fist and that's extended to the last panel. So essentially his will is like going through. I mean, and just the insane amount of work involved with the page like this.
Yeah, these are impressive. Inspiring and makes you want to quit.
I think it's mostly inspirational for me.
Yeah.
I think that his figure drawing was, like comparatively modest, like compared to some of the people who, I don't know. I think Mike Zeck could probably draw figures in circles around him. He learned inking on top of Zeck. You look at Gene's like stuff pre-Marvel, and it's like got that sort of rubbery, like cartoony, like there's some conflict sometimes between the referenced and non-referenced things, but you can just see he just ramps these things up through sheer will. Like the more I do, the better I'm going to get. So I'm going to do as much as I can possibly do it.
Yeah,
And
to
then you get
my
stuff-
eyes, his figure drawing's better than any of the other artists that were on the issues I looked at, and continues to improve. That page is a hell of a page too. That really strange turn around the corner through the city, and they're moving up and down stairs,
Mhm.
even though it's all one background. I could definitely see, like, if people had problems with that already, that one plays such weird tricks with perspective and dimension.
Mhm.
I could see him getting complaints about that too.
Well,
That's where they fly his ass out and put him in the cockroach hotel.
this might be one of the ones he's referring to, because look at these buildings. The top of these buildings here are all colored differently. But
Yeah,
this,
it's a stable scene, but it looks like it's fractured.
right? Yeah, it's not like literally. Yeah, it's not literally stable because of the way it's basically like as if these buildings could exist independently as a one unit, but they're overlaid on top of the several drawing units here.
I think it's all one scene just cut up. It's just there's a really weird thing in that middle panel where they walk up some stairs, and so they look closer.
Oh, I see.
It's all one shot. It's just
Interesting.
those stairs come up.
So the colorist, this is 100% the coloring messing with this then.
Yeah, that's one stable scene, but it is a little bit like he set it up to look bizarrely fractured and flattened out there with that strong diagonal, and then those stairs don't quite make sense in perspective. So that middle panel looks like two panels almost,
Right.
but that's partly the colors, but it's partly because of how the figures exist within there relative to the tops of those roofs don't quite make sense. But
Yeah.
it does read as one background to me. So
It's
I think
very interesting.
there's a perspective issue there of some sort that he put in, and then I think the colorist was confused by that and made it worse instead
Very
of
interesting.
fixing it.
Right. And then this all of a sudden designy background here. Really nice. This whole issue, I mean, we could just spend, one video on this entire issue here, but this
Window as panels
and
and
then
rhythm again.
chain as artificial plant panels here. These chain links functioning the same way. So it's almost like this is a rhythmical extension of the window panels above it.
Yeah.
You can see how much he controlled things with the blacks. I mean, quite extraordinary. I love the torso here too.
Yeah, these are good. That's some weird coloring too, with just that blue on the guy's face.
Yeah, I'd really like to see this whole issue without any color at all. I've changed my mind again about the coloring. I think this one is significantly.
On that left page there's a weird thing where I think he wasn't controlling lettering because he has some shape that he's trying to emphasize with that mid panel.
Right.
Very smack mid panel. No, down. Yeah. There's some animal shape that he's trying to plug that into, but then the lettering cuts off the top of the head, so you don't get
Right.
it.
This double page spread here is quite nice.
Yeah, those pieces in the middle too. That's another something that I think like J.H. Williams, someone like that would do.
You know what that really reminds me of, and I'm probably what the source is of it is like capstone illustrations for text.
Yeah.
You think about like Beardsley or earlier inset books where they'd have small capstone or side piece illustrations that were done as woodcut or whatever.
And I've always been impressed by people who do that, because from a pure like storytelling standpoint, it would never occur to you, okay, I'm just going to leave myself some extra space for a decorative element. But
Right.
the artists who figure out how to do that fluidly, it's just, yeah, because I would never think that. I always wonder, especially people who do it consistently, like they're in a different space when they're looking at a page than I am, or that they're able to balance those two kind of more just pure decorative design with the storytelling is like next level juggling to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the insight that he was heavily reliant on tracing paper, I think, gives you some idea of how that juggling was accomplished.
Yeah.
We have, things here with the consistent view with falling down. Quite interesting. And then
they really threw that guy out the window, man. He gets way bigger. The perspective in this issue is a little weird, I gotta say.
Yeah,
like, man,
no,
that guy got way bigger.
It
like
falls down a little
him.
bit. Yeah, some of the combination of things. This one here is fantastic. Look at the platform up here. This is one continual panel for the entire page, including the Shang-Chi getting attacked by all these snakes. And you can see, I love all the candles melted down. The visual rhythm of the candles, and then the snakes taking over.
Yeah, but a weird, because this is where I could see him driving Shooter a little crazy. It's like, why it feels like a camera zoom, but it's not. He's moving forward in the space, but it doesn't feel like he's moving. It feels like he's being held in place by the snakes. So like, why am I getting a camera zoom in a stable background? Does that make sense? Like, that's where, like, it looks hella cool, but it's like, is he walking forward? He doesn't look like he's walking forward.
Yeah, no, in visual terms, this would be the equivalent of a focus pull on a camera. If you were to simultaneously be zooming in and changing your, how do you do that exactly? You change your aperture.
Like the aperture length while you're doing a zoom or something.
Exactly. So that it's flattening out the space as you go. You're simultaneously getting closer while flattening.
It looks cool, but I could see why there would be some questions about, is it a zoom? Is he walking forward? Like, what the hell's going on in here? Well, I'm doing an aperture zoom. Well, why would you do that? And I mean, because it looks cool, man. It's like rhythmically cool. Who cares?
It's
people
same reason why
understand
would you put an inset panel here of him going down the stairs? Because it's awesome, and it enables you to see him. Okay, he's here. Okay, he's here. Okay, this is everything else.
And good job on the colorist there for doing red on the pants. That's cool. Like, take advantage. And another one of these guys, the Sorrenti guy that I'm talking about, always does these inset red panels. So, it's again time machine stuff.
Not so much a good job on the changing the color for the background for no particular reason. Here.
Yeah, I don't know what's
and then
what are you doing,
right
man?
Here, the praying mantis snake thing. I mean, it's just freaking great. They got the fight with this, and then this maniacal statue here, which is being implemented to kill the giant praying mantis.
And that the statue's shoulder rolls over as a tangent, and it looks like it's shoulder, itself. But then it's itself upside down. Meta compositional stuff. That's cool.
Oh man.
Panel borders cut out for the knives on the next page.
1982, dude. 1982 in a comic, newsstand comic.
Look at that. Alan Moore, suck it. Look at that clock. Watchman.
The sword.
Yeah, there's your Watchman clock.
1982. Talking about clocks, this clock that just dripped blood on here is establishing the countdown for the end of this sequence here.
Yeah.
This countdown that involves him looking into the mirror, and then the mirror being shattered by his clone who's going to kill him.
Oh shit.
I mean, this is the fight. that is, for me, number one, the culmination of all the work that Gene did on this book. And number two, this is the issue that got him fired.
Well, how foolish.
Unbelievable to me. This countdown continuing across this.
And
Just
pulling
this-
in motifs they set up before with like the king up there,
Yep.
these design motifs. So you have the king and then you have the evil king with like a scar on his eye. And again, some of this J.H. Williams type of design that you'll see more of nowadays.
And this right here, fighting across these panels.
And
I
then
mean,
the character in the window. So he's bouncing around outside and the other guy's running down the window. So you have like a panel within a panel with the windows and the doors. That's cool.
I mean, I just, and believe it or not, this is the one that did it. This is the one that Jim Shooter said, this is unacceptable. This is the one that he remembers as the thing that he was not happy about. This is the one allegedly that he said Archie Goodwin said it was unreadable. This is the one that Dave called Archie Goodwin, and Archie Goodwin said, no, I didn't say anything of the sort. This is great.
That
That's
page in
fantastic.
particular or this issue?
This issue in particular.
It was the snake page. Candle and snake page. I bet you.
Then we get this close up. We just really get the juice, you know, like he's making this like splash page with all this stuff on the side and with all these decorative motifs and with this storytelling motif that carries you through the entire thing. This moment to moment kung fu fight here. I mean,
Yeah, that's all super clear.
How good do you have to be before somebody gets you get fired?
It was the snake page, dude. You can't do the zoom, the camera zoom thing like that. This is cool too, the changing perspective with that card down there.
Or the card at the bottom. I mean, it's just no flesh of my flesh. You shall fall, and you shall become one with your shadow. Falling right in, and he's falling through the card. Look at this. So we come down, and then we're through at the top of this panel, right here.
So Jungian, become one with the shadow.
I came here stalking death or rebirth, now forced to slay the brother who is me. I find both. My son.
I should read this. This seems like a good kind of Jungian meta narrative myth. Fight against the father, fight against your cultural
right
kind of upbringing, find your own, integrate your shadow.
His vampire father, who's been drinking the blood of the clones in order to live.
Ugh.
And keep himself going. So we got the countdown continuing, and instead of killing his father, he pours all the blood out. Lick it up like a dog from the dust of your sins.
Brutal, man. Yes, I'll do anything you want.
Any way to have it.
Gross. Kill the patriarchy.
I mean, it's like a culmination of so much of that right there. How far can I take
the snake page? The snake page got him fired, man. That was the one they were like, what the hell is happening? And then the next issue here is fascinating to me because guest penciler Mark Silvestri.
That's right.
And it's a garbage compared to what we just saw. It is so visually pedestrian, like you said.
I'm looking up how old Mark Silvestri is because I think that this is an interesting combination. Mark Silvestri, who found fame on X-Men, so 58. So if Jean Day, let's see, so Silvestri was born in 1958. So let's
flip while you're doing the math. Flip 1, 2, 3. Page 4 of art.
So Gene was 7 years older than Silvestri.
So they fired Gene Day for being a shitty storyteller, and they got Mark Silvestri, who came in and penciled motherfucking arrows onto his panels.
So he wasn't fired. I mean, they gave him one more issue to finish out. I don't know if this was intended to be a fill-in or whether this was an inventory issue, but this one is still scripted by Doug Monk. Doug Monk quit when Gene Day was fired, to his credit. And, you know, everything that I've read about him, he seems like a upstanding guy, and somebody who, you know, really enjoyed the freedom that he had and was like pissed beyond belief why, you know, people would interfere with that. But yeah, you get to see future art star Mark Silvestri in a what's a nice way to put this?
Pedestrian was a good.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, you know, he's at the beginning of his career.
Journeyman.
Yeah, this is definitely his journeyman work, and there's some interesting touches to some of the stuff, but like, you know, it's just not. It's not,
but that's what blew my mind.
same.
You have Mike Zeck, who was a superstar at the time. You have Silvestri, who went on to be still is a huge name. He just doesn't produce that much anymore. But when he does, it's always a big deal. And you see that against what Gene Day was doing, and it's like, man, you know, like these guys went on to develop so much. He could have had all of that development time too. And then I don't know if there was anything in the issue.
Yeah, it's all 3-tier, you know, here. Okay, here we go. Okay, story's wrapped up. Villain that we got at the beginning. There we go. That's the end. You know, it's just
and arrows, because you can't even rearrange your panels in the right goddamn order, Mark Silvestri.
And then we have
then in his last issue, that whatever shit he was smoking to see the future, flip the page. He's got motherfucking Sam Jackson as Nick Fury in this shit.
I love this. I can't tell you how. Dweller by the Dark Stream.
It is a little hard to read.
Let's take it nice and slow with these silhouettes in the middle. I don't know.
I just can't get over. And then you go a couple more pages and you get that character with the eye patch. There's a page where he's arguing with an old guy. There, look at that's the Sam Jackson. It's like not just a likeness, but like the expression of the lip pulled over. Like that's Sam Jackson is Nick Fury. Where was he getting this from? What was this, 82?
82. Yep.
He was smoking the good stuff. Him and Dave, whatever LSD they took that gave Dave the vision for Cerebus and let Gene Day see that Sam Jackson was going to play Nick Fury and come up with all these storytelling devices. They had the good stuff.
So the cover date on this was January 1983. So this was the last issue that he drew, and he would be dead the month that it was published.
Jesus. It's such a loss. It really is.
31 years old. And like I said, I thought it was interesting comparing that to Bruce Lee, who made it to 32. And, you know, Bruce Lee had, it's a tragedy when somebody who's 32 dies. But Bruce Lee had, I think that he had reached his pinnacle. You know, he had directed several movies. He had, you know, been able to shape his own sort of destiny. And he wasn't just like a hired hand. You know, I don't feel like Gene got to quite reach that same pinnacle because he didn't have the thing that was his, you know?
No, and you get the sense that with how much this man obviously cared about the medium and him being around Dave, with Dave attempting a serious piece of literature, right. This is someone who I don't think would have stuck with superheroics his whole life. He would have become a big enough name and through his, and Dave was such a proponent of do it yourself, do your own thing. I can't imagine that Gene Day would not have gone on to have a major personal statement where all of his, unless he was just absolutely incapable of writing, which I really doubt given what I see in the artwork. I just can't imagine what all of his formal narrative techniques plus his absolute astonishing abilities as an illustrator would have combined to in terms of a literate, amazing comic, you know. And then, you know, so going from there, pull up the next issue. Do you have the next issue, Sean?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to dwell on this for a second here as he's being carried along the tide here, and then we've got the, you know, fight with the guy and the fight with the skeleton underneath. And just really,
which is like the last page, or no, the last
that's
page.
The last one right there, the bagpiper.
Yeah,
and the sunset. Bagpipes traditionally being played at funerals.
Yeah,
and as far as what he would have done next, you know, I will have to check out Black Zeppelin, the posthumous miniseries, which I've never seen anything from at all.
That would be cool.
But I'd like to see Black Zeppelin, and there's some debate about whether. Well, let's take a look at the next issue. So this is Gene's last issue on the book, and we'll talk about the last few things that he did when we do a little talk at the end here. But let's take a look.
Well, we can look at those separately. But in terms of what he may have accomplished as the amazing illustrator and formalist he was, you go to the next issue, and the penciler's Dave Matsukeli,
right?
Who's, you talk about someone who's just contributed like some amazing serious pieces of graphic literature like Asteros Polyp. And again, you look at it, and this is a very good, solid storytelling, as you'll get out of Dave Matsukeli, but nothing compared to the Gene Day issues. Just nothing. Very straightforward, reasonable illustration quality.
The writer on this is Stephen Grant,
who I almost work with. I think that's the guy I almost worked with before I quit.
So it's interesting. This is a very interesting thing. They fired Gene Day, and essentially, I believe they intended to quit they intended to cancel the book. They just didn't do it because they had inventory issues still there. And so this is like a stopgap issue that was probably new. Maybe it was a tryout of some type, and then they were building up to the inventory issues, and then the last issue that they're going to end with. So, you know, this is essentially like a cynical ploy to extend the farewell.
And just get a few more bucks out of an audience that was there because of Gene Day.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's a young Dave Matsukeli, and you see a young Gene Day compared to that, and see where Dave Matsukeli's gone.
Yeah.
And extrapolate from there in terms of like, holy hell, what we lost. And then in the last two issues, there's not even, the penciler's not even, who's the penciler on these? Just in terms of big names, I thought it was interesting. I have no idea who William Johnson is, but Mike Mignola on inks on the last two issues.
Oh, okay. So this one's Ernie Chan. That's a fill-in issue. I think this is, Mike Mignola on inks. These are inventory issues as well.
Yeah. So, you know, like not badly drawn comics, but again, another one of these people that's like, you don't get bigger than Mike Mignola. You don't get more literary and important than Dave Matsukeli. Like Mark Silvestri is part of the Image and about as big as you can get for a while. And it's all just, it's all right. And that really blew me away when I was looking through these. It really drove home how special his issues were.
Right.
And what a loss it was.
Yeah, because you get to see, you know, I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. So two issues inked by Mike Mignola. That's the real only thing that they have to offer, I think.
It's just page passes through there in one panel somewhere. But I don't know. I mean, they're not even worth looking at. It's just like some
Yeah.
kind of average comic.
And then the last issue, they attempted to wrap it up, and I think this was probably this one and the one before that are the only ones that were probably created in order to wrap things up. They were not inventory that they had to get rid of.
Who's the artist on that one?
The Johnson guy again,
With
William
Mignola
Johnson,
on inks again.
penciler, and Mignola on inks. And then someone else comes in for 10 of the pages.
All these things where you got like these guys, they're stuck on inks, and it's like, cut them loose, man. Why you got Mignola? You know, they just didn't know. They didn't know who these dudes were yet. They had to earn it. It's crazy. It's fun to see.
So that is the last 25 issues of Master of Kung Fu. So
Man,
let's take.
Sorry for going so long on that, but it's obvious that it's hard to gloss over too much of it.
Yeah, I mean, what would you cut out?
I don't know. I mean, that's why when I was sending you, I was trying to, okay, like he does the images inside of words like 4 or 5 times, and it looks badass every time. Let's just pick one just to show that he does it.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. So amazing stuff. That's all I can say.
There's a lot of development, you know, from a purely visual standpoint through there. And it's fun. It's interesting to see him take that motif, or take a tool and turn it into a motif. And I think that, you know, that's the thing that I kind of get misty eyed over, is like, what, you know, you're talking about 2 years, you know, you're talking about 2 years where he went from being an inker and embellisher to somebody who was had full command of the visuals. You know, most people in that position get a lot longer than that.
Yeah, and came out the gate once he was in the position to contribute, came out the gate better than most.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and seeing who the other most at the time working on the same book were and went on to be is just, I can't reiterate enough how mind-boggling that is. So I'm glad you brought that up. I would have never thought to go look at Shang-Chi. I've been like, yeah, I guess a movie's coming out, maybe. Maybe we'll get hits.
By all accounts, he was a very passionate and very modest man, who, you know, really liked the things that he liked, and you know, was like a gem of a guy to work with, and you know, cared very much about making the thing that he was making as good as it could be. And I think that those are all really admirable traits. And I think it's safe to say that we would never have had a, you know, Cerebus the Aardvark if we hadn't had a Gene Day, because it was Gene Day and visiting Gene Day that got Dave off his ass, and by Dave's admission, turned him from somebody who, you know, drew a few things and then sent them out, waited for them to come back, to somebody who saw productivity as its own goal, and wanted to improve himself constantly, and saw that as like its own reward, you know.
Well, not the
Being
other
better.
part of that equation is just imagining those two, you know, like ramping each other up for how until now still, like, oh my God, where would Dave be too, you know, like, wow. So terrible.
Yeah, I mean, take any person that you really love the stuff that they had in their output over a lifetime, and imagine what it was if you stopped it at 31.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you what I would be like if you stopped me at 31. You know, I don't feel like I've accomplished very much in my life. When I think about my own mortality, I think about the things that I haven't done, you know. But certainly at 31, I mean, there's not a single skill that I have now that was anything other than its journeyman stage, you know, 12 years ago.
All right. Yeah. I was more on the fine art thing at 30, so I was doing all right, but it's, yeah, since then I've produced less since then because life takes over. So I'm always impressed by the guys who just, they produce all the time. like because I just get involved in too much other stuff.
Yeah.
But the concentration it takes to produce like that and on a mostly monthly basis and with that level of craft, that commitment's impressive. So yeah, huge loss. Really glad you brought this to my attention to look at, because like I said, I never would have thought of it, but was really impressed by it. I really want to know if anyone has the omnibus. Is it worth hunting down, or did they do that color botch job with the really overly intense colors and stuff like they normally do?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can track down a copy and maybe we can do some image comparison at some point. But thanks for following through and watching all this, everybody. And I hope that you enjoy
it. Yeah, you made it. Yeah, thanks for following along, guys. Remember, like, subscribe, hit up the Patreon to help support Sean's tech videos. Go, if you haven't, get Strange Death of Alex Raymond, where you'll see a lot of the techniques that they were working on. Dave and Gene were obviously working on together back in the days of Shang-Chi. You know, Dave's using a lot of those same tricks and then kind of passed them on to me. So I almost feel like I'm seeing my own lineage in some of that too. Some of the tricks I stole from Dave to finish Strange Death, it's like, whoa, it's coming from this guy.
It's very interesting.
So,
especially the meta composition stuff. That's the stuff that I think is still underused and very interesting. And you can see how labor intensive it is to create something within that framework. That's probably
Photoshop makes it a little easier, but
right.
Dave still uses tracing paper. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for following along.
Thanks everybody. Have a good one.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.